usually talk about bridesmaid dresses making a statement, there is this collective, just involuntary shudder that goes through anyone who has ever looked at a wedding photo from the 1980s.
Oh, absolutely. Total panic.
Right. Like you immediately picture that shiny, rigid taffeta and, those aggressively puffy sleeves.
The ones that look like they have their own zip code.
Yes. Basically looking like a giant, heavily wrapped birthday present that's just, I don't know, waiting to be dismantled. You look at those photos and you think, the dress is entirely wearing the person.
It's wearing them, yeah.
But then you step into the world of modern bridal fashion today and suddenly volume is back. But the rules have just completely changed.
They really have.
We're looking at a design landscape that is, well, honestly, it's architectural. It's like structural engineering disguised as formal wear.
I love that description.
So whether you are actively in the trenches of planning a wedding right now, or maybe you're playing the role of the supportive best friend, trying to navigate those endless group chats about dress shopping.
Oh, the group chats are the worst.
So stressful. Or honestly, if you are just fascinated by the intersection of design and fashion and physical architecture, this deep dive is entirely tailored for you.
For sure.
Today we are dissecting a massive trend sweeping the bridal world, the return of the oversized bow. And we're pulling our insights today from an incredibly detailed style and trend guide by Weddizer.
Which is a fantastic resource, by the way.
It really is. They are a platform completely dedicated to wedding fashion trends, planning advice, and really the granular details of executing these big aesthetic moments.
Right, the logistics of actually making it happen.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this because I have to admit I have some serious reservations.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I mean, when I read oversized bows in the source material, my mind instantly went straight back to those 1980s prom dresses.
Of course it did.
I just think of something comical. Like, how does taking a giant piece of fabric and tying it in a knot actually look elegant? Is it sort of like using a bold punctuation mark at the end of a sentence, like an exclamation point for an outfit?
Think of it less like punctuation and more like, well, load-bearing architecture.
Okay, load-bearing.
Yeah, and the skepticism makes perfect sense because, historically, bows were treated as an afterthought.
Like a craft project.
Exactly. A designer would finish a dress and just pin this floppy ribbon onto the back to make it look, I don't know, quote-unquote cute or finished.
Right.
But what's fascinating here is that modern designers are completely flipping that script. They are entirely abandoning the traditional concept of a bow as a fragile, glued-on accessory.
Oh, they're building it in.
Yes. Instead, they are utilizing these dramatic, really oversized silhouettes to entirely replace heavy embellishment.
Oh, wow. So no more dresses covered in like 5 pounds of intense glass beading.
More dragging that weight around.
Or blinding sequins or that really stiff metallic embroidery. The physical structure of the dress is the decoration.
Precisely. I mean, a decade ago, bridesmaid trends heavily favored visual noise. We saw a lot of heavy sequins, really intricate beadwork.
I've worn a few of those, yeah.
Right. And the inherent problem with those heavy embellishments is that they create an incredibly stiff, suffocating garment.
They really do. You can barely move your arms.
Exactly. They scrape against your arms, they weigh down the wearer, and they are notoriously uncomfortable to wear for, 10 hours straight.
Plus, they could be a bit much next to the bride.
That's the other thing. From a design perspective, they often visually upstage the bride.
Right.
What the Weddizer guide points out is that an oversized bow offers this incredibly difficult-to-achieve marriage of timeless femininity and contemporary elegance.
Sort of a best-of-both-worlds situation.
Yeah. It introduces a luxurious three-dimensional texture and this really fashion-forward styling without being visually noisy. It relies entirely on shape, drape, and shadow rather than just sheer sparkle.
Which means the geography of the dress becomes, well, the most important factor.
Absolutely. Placement is everything.
Because this trend is all about replacing those heavy, sparkly embellishments with structural design. Exactly where you anchor that structure completely dictates the center of gravity and the attitude of the dress.
Completely changes the vibe.
Yeah, and the Weddizer source breaks this down into some very specific placements. And I want to look at the mechanics of these because, I mean, moving a massive structural element 2 feet changes the entire psychology of the garment.
Oh, 100%.
Let's start with the back statement bow. Because to me, this seems like the most theatrical option.
It is theatrical, but it's also highly strategic.
Strategic how?
Well, consider the actual choreography of a standard wedding ceremony.
Okay.
The bridesmaids walk down the aisle for maybe, 30 seconds,
Hate that, yeah.
right? And then for the next 30 to 40 minutes, the guests are seated, primarily looking at the backs of the bridal party.
Oh, wow. That is such a great point. I never thought about that. You do just spend most of the ceremony staring at the back of everyone's heads, trying not to zone out.
Exactly. So a large, beautifully structured bow anchored to the lower back or the waistline, it fundamentally alters that viewing experience.
It gives them something to look at.
Yes. It provides an unforgettable entrance, but more importantly, an equally stunning exit. It offers 360-degree elegance.
I love that phrase, 360-degree elegance.
It breaks up that long, flat, vertical line of a traditional gown's back and introduces just profound dimension.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Okay.
But then the guide moves to the shoulder bow, which they say can be single or double.
Yes, the shoulder placement.
Now, a back bow makes sense to me, that out of the way.
Yeah.
But a massive bow sitting on a shoulder feels like it could easily turn into, I don't know, a coyote's parrot. Yeah, it sounds like a cantilevered structure just hovering next to your ear.
It requires meticulous tailoring, absolutely. You can't just slap it on there. A shoulder bow is highly couture-inspired,
Okay.
and it serves a very specific optical purpose. It violently draws the viewer's eye upward, immediately framing the bridesmaid's face.
That's like a spotlight for the face.
Exactly. When executed correctly on a fitted, minimalist gown, it creates a really powerful sense of balance. It's an assertive editorial choice.
I can see how that works for a really high fashion look. Now, the guide also mentions the waist bow. I'm assuming this one is acting more like a visual cinch.
Yeah, the waist bow is essentially an optical illusion. It serves as a stark focal point that visually narrows the midsection.
Nice. We love that.
Right, but it also introduces a necessary softness.
How so?
Well, if you have a gown with very rigid, severe lines, maybe a deep V-neck or a really straight column skirt, a waist bow interrupts that severity. It breaks up the vertical geometry of the dress and introduces this moment of fluid drapery.
Ah, okay. Which contrasts completely with the next one, the neckline bow.
Yes, the high neck.
The source mentions placing these on high neck gowns. And my brain immediately goes to 1950s Hollywood red carpet glamour, but scaled up to an almost absurd degree.
The vintage glamour reference is spot on, but the modern twist is all about exaggeration.
Taking it over the top.
Yeah, a massive bow sitting high at the neckline is daring because it essentially functions as built-in statement jewelry.
Oh, that's clever.
It frames the neck and the jawline so dramatically that any additional jewelry would actually ruin the neckline's architecture.
Which definitely saves the bridal party from having to source a matching necklace, so that's a win.
A practical bonus for sure.
And finally, the guide details off-the-shoulder bow sleeves. This sounds less structural and more fluid, like the sleeves themselves are just cascading knots.
That's a great way to put it. This specific placement is deeply romantic, and it adds incredible kinetic energy to the garment.
Kinetic energy, so they move with you.
Exactly. The sleeves themselves droop elegantly off the shoulders, creating an almost poetic, sweeping movement as the person walks.
But wait, if we are attaching these massive architectural structures to a human body, proportion has to be the single most critical factor here.
Without a doubt.
The Weddizer guide specifically highlights this because, if you take a petite bridesmaid and bolt a massive, stiff structural bow onto her shoulder, she is going to look like she's hiding behind a piece of furniture.
It'll completely swallow her.
Right. The proportions of the bow have to scale dynamically to complement the specific body shape of the person wearing it. It cannot just be a one-size-fits-all architectural element stamped onto every single dress in the party.
The architecture must serve the wearer, not the other way around.
Right.
If a bow extends past the natural shoulder line of a petite frame, it creates a widening effect that overwhelms the silhouette. The geometry of the bow just has to align with the geometry of the individual.
Which means we have to talk about the actual building materials.
The fabrics, yes.
Because a bow's placement is only half the engineering equation. The physical material it is made of dictates its tensile strength, its weight, and, how it actually behaves in the real world. Does it fight gravity? Does it catch the wind? And those physical behaviors dictate what kind of wedding theme the dress actually belongs in.
This raises an important question. How does a designer, or a bride for that matter, go about engineering these bows with the right fabric?
You definitely can't just walk into a bridal shop and say, I want a big bow, and hope for the best.
No, you really can't. The physics of the textile will entirely make or break this aesthetic.
Okay, so let's analyze the fabric physics outlined in the Weddizer guide. On the heavier end of the spectrum, they talk about satin.
Classic satin.
Right. And satin has significant physical weight. It is densely woven, it's glossy, and it possesses the structural integrity to really hold a shape beautifully against gravity.
It does. A satin bow will appear crisp, luxurious, and highly formal.
But then the guide brings up Mikado.
Yeah.
Now, had to look this up because it sounds like a building material.
It kind of acts like one.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Mikado is a fascinating textile. It is a blended silk that is even heavier, denser, and significantly stiffer than standard satin.
Mm.
It acts almost like scaffolding. It provides these incredibly bold, sharp, rigid architectural shapes.
So it literally holds itself up.
Exactly. If a designer wants to create a bow that literally stands up on its own, jutting out into space like a modern art sculpture, they engineer it using Mikado.
Okay, so satin and Mikado are the heavyweights. They act like the load-bearing walls for the dress.
Yes.
But if we pivot to the lighter end of the spectrum, the guide mentions organza, tulle, and chiffon. Now, I understand how heavy silk holds a shape. But how does a lightweight sheer fabric hold a massive bow structure without